We are continuing, if you haven't been here, our summer series, because it's kind of a nice, easy one you can pop in and pop out of, because I know a lot of you travel and stuff like that during the summers. But what we're doing is we're looking at the 12 traits, or 12 biblical traits that we know lead to both earthly success and spiritual success in your life if you apply these things on a regular basis in your life. So far, the traits we've looked at is growing faith, having a spirit of hard work, so being someone who works hard, developing wise relationships, having the right type of relationships, and even the right mix of relationships in your life. We talked about living with courage, and one of the things that Christians are called to have is be people who are courageous. And then last week we talked about how to love others and the trait of loving others, that we must as Christians love other people, and that's a way of being successful in both our earthly existence and our spiritual lives with the Father. Today we're going to look at a topic called wise stewardship, okay? So that's what we're going to be looking at. Wise stewardship simply means this. It means learning how to handle, manage, and distribute your resources in a way that honors God rather than allowing it to consume you. Okay? So that is what wise stewardship is. It's being able to handle the things you have materially in this world in a way that draws you closer to God, which makes you wise, rather than having to pull away from God and drive you away from Him. Now, this is different than how most people handle their resources in this world today and how most of us are taught. If we're honest, most people just simply survive financially in our culture anymore. The way it works for most people is they can kind of tell you if they're doing okay or if they're not doing okay, but they're really not sure where they're actually at in their financial picture. So a lot of people I'll sit down with and you start talking to them and they'll be like, so how are you money-wise, where are you at, stuff like that, and they'll be like, I don't really know. And they'll be like, I can tell if I'm doing okay or not okay, and then they'll be like, I think we're doing all right, or other times they'll be like, nah, I think I'm doing pretty rough right now. But they really don't know how specifically that is or how detailed that is. A lot of people I've also run into just ignore the whole issue. And they've kind of gotten in their minds, if I ignore where I am with my finances and stuff like that, it's less stressful in my life. And so I'll just live the way I want to live and all, but not worry about the finances and all that until it finally gets really bad, and then it like crushes everything and it like rips your entire life apart. But in the meantime, a lot of people just kind of ignore it and kind of go, that's just kind of how I go through life, is I ignore my finances, I ignore my resources. But here's the thing. If you want to be successful in this life, both in an earthly sense, also and more importantly in a spiritual sense, you have to learn how to be wise with the resources that God has given to you. And if you do not think this is a big issue, let me share with you what Jesus says in Luke chapter 16:11. He says this, and if you are untrustworthy with worldly wealth, who will trust you with the riches of what? Heaven. Okay? Jesus makes it very clear. How we handle our finances is a huge spiritual issue, and it's a huge issue with our relationship with the Father. Okay? Because he goes, if you can't handle the stuff here well, how are you going to handle the stuff I give you in heaven? All right? So it's a major issue. We need to take time to learn how to be wise stewards of the resources we have been given. So what we're going to do is I'm going to break this down into 3 areas of stewardship and just kind of briefly talk about them this morning. So the first area we're going to talk about when it comes to being wise stewards of the things God has given us is how to handle your resources. Okay? Everyone in this world has some degree of resources that they have been blessed with to control while they are on this planet. That can be, for some of you, it can just be cash and money. So even today, Derek, when he got in my car today, he was like, look, I got money, okay? All of us have some money, some access to money. We have that. Some of us have even more where we have possessions and quite a few possessions. And as Americans, we all have some degree of possessions. We have stuff. And we have, most of us have a lot of extra stuff that's just laying around our homes and stuff like that, of stuff we bought in the past that we don't even use anymore and it just collects, right? How many of you have closets at home that are full of junk from your past? Raise your hand. I know about you, yeah, okay. So my small group members, I definitely know. Some of you, another resource you might have, not everyone has these, some of you possibly might have investments. And that's where you've actually put some money aside or possessions that are actually earning more money and growth on them. And you have these things called investments. Our goal as Christians is to handle the resources we have in a way that draws us closer to God rather than pulling us further away from Him. And I want to highlight some scriptures about how we need to handle our money. In Proverbs 3:9, it says this: honor the Lord with your wealth and with the best part of everything you produce. Okay? So one of the things we see here is our wealth is connected to our relationship with God and honoring Him with the stuff that we have, with the possessions, the wealth, the investments, making sure those things are honoring to Him, meaning they're drawing us closer to Him and building our relationship with Him. On the flip side, I'm going to give you 3 scriptures here where we are specifically warned of the influence that money more likely can have in our lives if we're not wise about how we handle it. The first one comes from chapter 12, Luke chapter 12, verse 15. And here's what Jesus says. He said, then He said, beware. Okay, exclamation point. Beware. So He's going, listen to what I'm saying. Beware. Guard against every kind of greed. Okay? Life is not measured by how much you own. This is complete opposite of everything our culture tells us. Our culture, your entire value is based on what you own, right? The more you have, the more successful we see you in this culture. That's just how it is. The more you have, the more we go, that's a smarter person, a better person. That's just how we are taught and how we're instructed. And Jesus says, hey, beware against every type of greed of thinking that's what life is all about, is acquiring more, more, and more, because life is not measured by how much you own. Life is not measured the way the American culture tells you that it is. In 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10, it says this: for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, and some people craving money have wandered from the true faith and have pierced themselves with many sorrows. Now, always have to bring this point up. It is not saying money is the root of all evil. What's it saying? The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil that will lead you down roads you never wanted to go, that will lead you to consequences you never wanted to have in your life and things you have to handle you never wanted to handle. Is it saying the love of money, meaning you see money as your answer to everything. You think money is the thing that's going to fulfill you. You think having more money is going to make your life more purposeful, more meaningful, more content, more satisfied. And you love money and go, if I could just have money and I could just marry and have more of it and have it in my life more and more, all the rest of the things in my life would fall in place. That's what it means by the love of money. And it says that mindset is the root of all kinds of evil. And it leads some people craving money, they've even given up their faith and given up their relationship with God to pursue money and having more of it because they find their security in the money, not in their relationship with the Lord. Okay? So we get a very clear warning of how to handle our money. Hebrews 13:5 then says this: don't love money, be satisfied with what you have. And what that's really telling you is this. It doesn't mean don't try to earn more money. It's not saying don't try to get promotions. It's not saying that. It's just saying, hey, with where you are in life and what God has currently blessed you with, be satisfied with it. Learn to be thankful for it. Don't look at other people, compare yourself to them and be like, they have so much more than me, and then make you go, I'm no longer satisfied with what I have because I'm constantly looking at that person and what they have, and I can never find contentment. God's telling you a very healthy way to handle your money is take what you have. Don't worry what anyone else has. Be content with what you have. If you have a roof over your head, you have clothes to wear, and you have food to eat, be satisfied with that. And go, thank you, God, that you provided those things for me. Everything else, icing on the cake. What He's telling you not to do is this. Go over and look at Christy and go, man, God, you've given me a roof over my head. You've given me clothes to wear. You've given me food. But man, Christy has a better house over her head. She has better clothes, and she has better food, and she has more stuff than me. And then you sit there and go, now I'm not satisfied. Now instead of being grateful to God, I'm upset because I don't have what she has. And he's going, that's not a place you want to get mindset-wise with your money. So what we're being told is this: you have to guard to make sure your resources will be a blessing in your life that actually draw you closer to God, rather than having them something that utterly destroy your faith. Okay? So you have to handle your money properly. A second area of wise stewardship is this: we have to talk about managing your resources. So you have handling it, then you got to talk about managing it. Learning to manage your resources is essential to finding financial freedom and having the ability to financially bless others. If you do not manage your money well, a couple things will happen. You will not have financial freedom, and you will also find yourself in situations time and time again where you want to help people, but you can't because you're not in a place where you can help them, because you don't have the freedom financially on your own to have other money left over to help other people. And so you will be robbed of one of the greatest blessings you can have in this life, which is blessing other people with the things God has blessed you with. Okay? And so we have to learn how to manage our resources. A lack of wisely managing our resources will end you up and trap you in a cycle of chaos, stress, and selfishness. So if you do not manage your resources well, that's where you will end up. You will end up constantly in chaos financially. You'll end up stressing about your finances constantly, and you will start to turn inward and start thinking about yourself other than others on a more consistent basis. Okay? That is a result of not managing your money well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you three brief, I'm not going to go in detail here because I could preach a sermon on each of these, but I'm going to give you three brief biblical things we see here about how to manage your money in a proper way that will lead to financial freedom and lead to the ability for you to help other people financially as well. First one comes from Romans 13. And the first thing we're going to learn here from verses 7 and 8 is you have to play by the rules. Okay? You play by the rules. According to Romans 13, it says this: give to everyone what you owe them. So if you owe people something, don't play games with them. Don't try to withhold it from them. Don't try to lie about it. Give them what you owe them. It says, pay your taxes and government fees to those who collect them. We all hate paying taxes. You will hear this, and I've heard this my whole life. You'll have some Christians go, I don't support what the government's supporting, therefore I don't want to pay my taxes and have my tax money going to those things. Guess what? You live in a country that has authorities, that has a government, and you don't get to control how all that is spent. And luckily in our country, if you don't like it, go vote another way and hope you can change it somehow. But at the end of the day, as Christians, you pay your taxes. You play by the rules of the government you live under. Do you think when this was written, when they were living under the Roman Empire, the Roman Empire was living the way Christians want to live? Absolutely not. They were a horrific society compared to what Christians are called to live, how we are called to live. Yet, he's telling them, pay your taxes to the government, okay? Play by the rules. And it says this, and give respect and honor to those who are in authority. So give respect and honor to those in authority. So it's just telling you, with managing your resources, the first thing, play by the rules. And I would say this, if you don't, it always catches up with you, okay? It will always come back to bite you. Play by the rules. Second thing about wise management of your money and manage your money well. Avoid debt at all cost. Proverbs 22:7, it says this: just as the rich rule the poor, so the borrower is a servant to the lender. Okay? Do what you can to stay out of debt. If you are younger in here right now, don't get into debt. If you think that's a stupid thought, come to me afterwards and I will take you to some people in our congregation who didn't know that lesson when they were your age, and I guarantee you they will tell you don't do what we did. Okay? Because here's what happens when you go into debt. I would say there's two in our society today, typically two areas I would go, debt you kind of have to go into just to get them. One would be a house, okay? So one, you almost have to take on debt to get into a house and then pay it back. So I would say you can't really get around that one. The other one would usually be a vehicle most of the time, but a lot of times we lust for things that we don't need to lust for, and we could probably get away with a cheaper vehicle that would put us in less debt, that would be smarter for us. So be wise in the vehicle that you purchase. Outside of that, only purchase things you already have money for. Okay? Try to stay out of debt. Don't go into debt, because here's what happens with debt. What happens with debt is you go in because you are, as we were wrong before, greedy, or you're lustful with your eyes for things that you can't afford yet, and you think, but I want it now, and I will not be patient, and I'm going to get it now. And here's what happens, and we're going to hear about this in other parts of the scriptures we're going to read today. Everything in this world deteriorates. So there's a bunch of people who have debt on stuff they don't own anymore and never use anymore. And yet they're paying money on that stuff that they can't even remember what it is anymore. And so you will hear people with credit card debt, and they will say, I have mountains of debt and credit cards. And if you ask them, what's the stuff you bought? They can't tell anymore. It's gone. It's history. But you know what's not history? The debt. Okay? It cripples you. Stay out of debt. And it says here, the borrower is a servant to the lender. You literally become a slave to that debt and paying the person back that you owe. Whether it's a credit card company or an individual or a business, you become a slave to them where they control your life. The third bit of wisdom I would teach you about managing your resources well. You got to have a plan or a budget. Make a plan, make a budget. Proverbs 21:5, it says this, good planning and hard work lead to what? Prosperity. But hasty shortcuts lead to poverty. Okay? You got to be functioning from some type of plan or budget, especially when you're younger and you're trying to train yourself good habits with your money. You got to have some type of, here's my plan, here's how I'm taking the income that I get, and here's how I'm paying the bills that I have. And you got to have some type of a budget process where you do that. We're going to be working on developing some type of class material. I've actually talked to Steve Gardner, and I wasn't going to point you out right now, but Steve's really good, I know, from past teaching us stuff, and we're going to try to put some curriculum together to help people know better how to handle and plan and budget their money. Because once you have a budget and a plan and know where you're at, it takes so much stress away from your finances, and it gives you an ability to actually think forward about things you would like to get and actually put money aside to get there, so your dreams that you have or the things that you want, you do in a proper way that do not handicap you or enslave you again, and still give you freedom to help people. Okay? So have a plan, have a budget. If you're not working from one right now, I'm sure you can go online and just pull something up that would tell you, here's how you budget your money, here's how you plan your money, stuff like that. That would give you a better idea. If you are just going, I don't think about it and I just spend what I get, you're in a disaster area, and you're going to be enslaved by debt at some point. That's just naturally where it always ends up. Okay? So manage your money well, manage your money in a wise way, so that you can have financial freedom and you can have success down the road. The last thing we got to talk about when we're talking about wise stewardship is this, distributing your resources in a godly way. So God's intent is not for you to keep all of your resources to yourself, but rather to strategically distribute those resources to the world around you in order to build God's eternal kingdom. What God does ask us to do with our resources, once we are handling it well, so it's not hurting our relationship with God, once we're managing it well, we're also supposed to distribute it in a strategic way that builds God's kingdom, so you can take the things of earth that are temporal and make them turn into things that are eternal and have eternal results. I'm going to give you 3 scriptures that lay this out. The first one, Matthew 6. This is probably the most familiar one to you, verses 19 through 21. It says, do not store up treasures here on earth, where moths eat them and rust destroys them, and where thieves break in and steal. Store your treasures in heaven, where moths and rust cannot destroy, and thieves do not break in and steal. Whatever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will be also. So the first thing we're warned on here is this: the thing you value, either money or God, whichever one you trust, that's going to be the one that your heart desires. And we see in other scriptures you can't have both. You can't say I love God and love money. It doesn't work, because one, you'll start to love more than the other, and you'll have to hate the other, or you'll love that one and hate the other one. You can't love both God and money. We are taught in scriptures. And so Jesus is warning us, build your treasures for the things of the eternal, because all the stuff here eventually vanishes and breaks apart and falls away and just it's gone. And so make sure you make the right decisions. Now, two more interesting scriptures. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 17 through 19. It says this, teach those who are rich in this world. Okay? Teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud and not to trust in their money, which is so unreliable. So he's going, don't be proud in it, don't trust in it. And the reason why, because it's unreliable. If you're in Sunday school class, we're going through Job right now, and we have seen how unreliable the things of this world are. In an instant, they can be taken away. Okay? And so it says they're unreliable. He says, their trust, so those who are rich in this world, their trust should be in God, who richly gives us all we need for our enjoyment. This is interesting, that God says here, I give you all that you need for your enjoyment, meaning I'm okay with you enjoying some of the things of this world and having an okay life at times. I'm okay with that. I'm not anti that. I'm not telling you to be absolutely poor. I'm just telling you, get your priorities straight, okay? Then he says, tell them to use their money to do what? Good. Use your money to do good. They should be rich in good works and generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others. By doing this, they will be storing up their treasures as a good foundation for the future so that they may experience true life. Okay? I love that last part. He goes, man, you handle your money well, and if you distribute it well in a way that does good works and helps people, by doing that, you will start to experience true life. Not just here, but for eternity in God's kingdom. And that gets to the last scripture, which is this, Luke 16:9. Jesus tells a parable. I'm not going to go through it with you right now. I highly encourage you, go back and read the first part of chapter 16 here. After his parable, he concludes it, and he tells you straightforward. He says, here's the lesson. Okay, you want to know what I was trying to teach you? He says, here's the lesson. Use your worldly resources to benefit others and make friends. Okay? Let me stop here for a second. Use your worldly resources. Does it say to build bigger homes? Does it say to buy nicer phones? Get better clothes? Drive better cars? All that. Is that what he's telling you to do? No, he makes about two things. Use your worldly resources to do two things. Benefit others, make friends. What I would say is this. If you are spending your money on bigger houses, bigger cars, nicer clothes, nicer phones, and all that, to the extent that you cannot benefit other people and use your resources to make friends, you're doing it wrong. It's not wrong having those things over there as long as you're doing these things as well. Okay? And so he's telling you to be, how did I describe it earlier? You need to be strategic in how you use your money. You use it in ways to impact people's lives. This is one of the things I love doing. I've had conversations with people in this church when they start having resources in their hands that they never had before. And I tell them the greatest, most enjoyable thing you get to do is give your money to people because it's the greatest power in this world in a worldly sense. Not saying besides God, I'm just saying the people of this world, they care about money. And so we can use it to impact their lives, and that's what we're supposed to do. I live where I specifically live right now so I can use my resources to impact people. Because where I live, I have more money than everybody else, okay? And so I can use that money to impact people. Why do we have pool parties at my house? Because I can invite all my neighborhood kids over and they come have pool parties. And guess what? The more they're around me, they get to see God more. So I'm going to use my resources to use it. And this is weird. This is what's weird. This whole scripture, the parable beforehand, it's talking about like the scrupulous guy who gets fired, but he like gives his boss's money to people. So after he gets fired, they like him and they'll hire him. And then Jesus says, here's the lesson I'm trying to teach you. Be like that guy, but do it in a good way, which is use your money, use your resources to befriend people, to make friends with them. And that if that's the way that you have to use as the anchor to get in their lives, use it. Use it to benefit people. And then he says this, if you do that, he says, then when your possessions are gone, when you're dead and they have no value to you anymore, they will welcome you to where? An eternal home. My hope is this, I can use my resources in such a way that someday when I die here, there will be people in heaven that are there because I was able to take some of my resources and build friendships with them through that. And that was my way of getting into their lives, to build friendships with them and lead them to the Lord. And so when my riches here are gone, someday I will go to heaven and I will see people there that I use my earthly resources to benefit and befriend that are now in heaven because I use them the correct way. That is our goal as Christians. Use your resources in ways that you can build friendships and you can benefit people and point them to Christ. That is the most powerful use of your money you will ever have in your life. So to close today, God has blessed each of us with resources in this world, whether it's little or much or just somewhere in between. And we are responsible to wisely handle those resources in a way that honors God and contributes to building his kingdom. Okay? Never forget the truth of 1 John 2:17, where it just says this, and this world is fading away along with everything people crave. But anyone who does what pleases God will live forever. Be wise stewards. Realize all the resources you have in your life are a blessing from God, and they are meant to bless his kingdom and build his kingdom while you are here. Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father,